Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the best series on the internet. Of course, I'm talking about good old-fashioned BL. No, the other BL. There we go. Board Lords. For an aspiring board lord like myself, this series is God's gift to Earth. And today we're going to be ranking every boulder from season 1 from ass all the way to the legendary and mythic tiers. Starting with the first boulder that was ever introduced on Board Lords, 10,000 Days. Now it's kind of hard to imagine, but this video was already uploaded almost 3 years ago. And out of the 200,000 views it currently has, I think I've probably contributed to about 40 to 50,000 of these. Like, the amount of ad revenue that I've given tension at this point is probably comparable to like the SpaceX IPO. And since this video, this boulder has become absolutely iconic in the board climbing community. I mean, ISOing on this underclean crimp over your head to do this hand flip absolutely blew my little Gumby mind the first time I saw it. Not to mention this immaculate hand foot match tweeze thing to come into this undercling. And then to top it all off, you have this massive drive-by for the finish. This boulder is just peak, and it's board climbing setting at its finest. Do you remember how Ty Landman said Jade was the test piece of his generation? Well, for me, the test piece of my generation is 10,000 Days at 55 degrees, which is actually 5 degrees steeper than it is in this video, and has been done by 4 of the boardiest lords to ever do it. In addition to all of that, this boulder also introduced me to Zach Galla's back, which ramps it up even higher. We're starting off really strong with 10,000 Days going straight into the mythic tier. Next we have You've Seen the Butcher from episode 2. Now I really like this boulder. I really like how it looks like you completely skip this side pull crimp just to use it as an undercling with the other hand. I also really enjoy seeing Michael and Quinn bust all over the mirror layout.
And then you bust again to this really bad sloper.
These holds are also so bad at this angle that the boulder only really works with this dam bar bicycle, which is something that board climbing doesn't usually offer, so it's really nice to see. This boulder was originally set at 55 degrees, but of course, my goat, Sean RHM, has done it at 60. I also heard him say that he was actually really close to it at 65, which is absolutely insane because neither Drew or Nick were able to link this boulder in this episode. I will say though, I have officially passed Sean RHM on the all-time TV1 leaderboards. So, you know, I'm pretty much confirmed a better climber than he is at this point. Overall, absolutely fantastic boulder, and this one is going into the legendary tier. Next we have Aja, which is the second boulder from probably the most famous episode, episode 7. I'm gonna be upfront here and just say I'm not a big fan of this one. First of all, this boulder requires you to match on like 3 of the holds, and in true wannabe board lord style, I'm not a big fan of matching. In fact, sometimes I go into my gym or outside and I realize that I've just made the climb 3 grades harder because I forgot that matching was on. On top of all that, the last 2 moves are probably the most morpho moves that have ever been set in a board lords. A huge cross into a massive one-arm dino with super low feet, shutting down my goat in the process. So, as a 4'10" individual myself, I gotta rep the shorties, and I'm gonna put Aja into the ass tier. Next we have Crying in the Club, which is the second boulder from episode 4. Overall, this is a pretty solid boulder, but for a board lords boulder, it's honestly pretty forgettable. Going into a board lords episode, I expect some great things. In any other context, I think this boulder would be pretty solid. It's like walking into a 3-star Michelin restaurant and only getting 1-star Michelin quality. It's like any other place, this would be pretty amazing, but I personally expect more from board lords. The movement on this is some pretty standard board climbing, like with these pretty hard open-handed dead points. And the fact that we saw back-to-back flashes on this makes it pretty forgettable. I'm putting this one into the mid category.
Come on, man. All you got. Yay! Holy shit. Wow.
Going back to the first episode, we have Deus Ex Machina, which to this day is probably still one of the hardest board climbs ever done. And it wasn't even done by any of the 3 board lords in the original episode. Its only ascent comes from a pretty unknown board lord named Julian Bressler. I heard Katie Lamb on a podcast one time talk about how this kid will just come in and do like V16 on the boards casually, like on a Tuesday after school. So he definitely needs to take a trip to Tension. In addition to the difficulty, this boulder has some pretty top tier movement with this Gaston bump recycle beta and this sweet hand flip. Side note, I absolutely adore hand flips on board boulders, especially when they come from Michael Rosado.
Little flippies. You know I love the flippies.
And on top of all that, it has an absolutely fire name, Deus Ex Machina, which translates to God from the Machine. I low-key really want to put this in the mythic tier just because it has so much going for it, and it's one of the most difficult climbs that's ever been done on a board. But unfortunately, I feel like the ending of this boulder is a bit of a letdown in quality because they had to make this really bad finishing hold as the match to prevent the boulder from being broken. So for now, I'm going to put Deus Ex Machina into the legendary tier.
How is he still on? What the fuck was that?
Now we get to Doomed User, which is the second boulder from episode 3. Now I have really mixed feelings about this one. On the one hand, Helen has some super cool beta for this, where you first go to the jug, then you come up to the sloper and do this like really cool recycle match on the sloper. But unfortunately in this episode, it kind of became apparent that if you can reach the far left heel early, you can kind of just sit on it for the second half of this boulder and completely skip the undercling jug, probably make the boulder like a grade easier in the process. I really like the idea of this boulder, but I feel like it's just too easy to break in not a very interesting way, so I'm gonna also have to put this one into the ass tier. Moving on, we have Double A Bouquet. Now when I was first watching this boulder in the breakdown, I was honestly not really liking what I was seeing. First of all, this boulder is a slab, so we're already not really off to a good start. But also, the crux bump to the jug looks pretty awkward and also probably pretty height dependent. So I was thinking this boulder was probably going to be pretty mid. But then, in comes Allison Vest, the board jester herself, and completely cements this boulder into the stuff of legends. Reverse bump, meat wrap, recycling the dam bar. Are you kidding me? Locking off on a hand heel match and then doing a 360 spin sky toe hook match for the finish. Absolutely insane. My mind was completely blown when I saw this. I feel like Allison reads the TB2 like Magnus Carlsen reads a chessboard. She makes a move and you're like, what are you doing? But then like 5 moves down the line, your queen is just gone.
Oh my god, my queen!
This is the type of stuff I do when I'm like trolling my friends into thinking I'm actually gonna try this crazy beta. So pretty much because of her beta alone and how mind-blowing it is that it actually worked, I'm gonna have to put this one into the legendary tier. Up next we have Hey Man, Nice Shot, the secret surprise third boulder of episode 4. Now I really love the movement on this boulder. The starting undercling double bump into this bicycle to come into this other undercling that's actually like just a foothold, as well as like the coordination dyno at the top where you're just like flying into this jug at 60-degree angle is like really cool. But I think the best part about this boulder is actually the move to the jug, because I think it's so interesting that part of the difficulty on this is just that the jug is just too good and it like rips you off the bad hold. It almost makes me think that like if this jug was replaced by something a little worse, the move would actually be like quite a bit easier, which is just like really cool setting in my opinion. The highlight of this episode for me was seeing Ben like isolate this move with like a really flexible heel hook. It's also cool seeing how like Ben, Adam, and Noah all could only do like a few of these moves, but putting all of their strengths together, they were able to do all the moves between them. It's like some stuff out of the Avengers. This may be controversial, but all of this coupled with the fact that this boulder probably has an argument to be the hardest boulder that's ever been featured on Board Lords, as nobody's done it yet. I feel like this one belongs into the mythic tier. Doing this really like weird flexible heel hook thing into like the coordination dyno at the end would be insane to link together, I think. By the way, have you ever wondered why Ben and Noah are so strong while you're still stuck on Masquerade V3? Well, it's probably because you aren't training like they were. You see, not a lot of people know this, but the Wheeler brothers were actually both hard stuck V3 right up until they started training at Reach Climbing and Fitness. If you're ever in the Philly or King of Prussia areas and one day want to do V14 on the kilter board, come on down to Reach Climbing and Fitness, where we have not 1 but 2 bouldering gyms, not 1 but 2 lifting gyms, a spray wall, 4 standardized boards, a ninja room, a slackline, a gymnast floor, and in my opinion, the best lead walls in the entire state. Thank you so much to Reach for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to the boards. Going back to we have Everything Zen, the first boulder from the latest episode. In terms of cool movement, this boulder legitimately has it all. It first starts with a juicy drop knee right into this undercling to set up for one of the sweetest and hardest Gastons I've ever seen. There are very few things in this world that I love more than a good Gaston, and this one looks like one of the best. It's gotta be top 3 at least. But it doesn't end there, because then you do this crazy footwalk to go upside down and get this bike to do yet another microzado hand flip before diving back using another bike and dynoing to the finish. In terms of movement on a board, this is some of the best I've ever seen. The atmosphere of this episode was also incredible. I haven't been this hyped on Christmas Day since I was like 12 years old. I think the only ascent of this boulder so far is from Hamish, and of course he just gave it like V13. But this one's definitely going into my dream climbs list, right next to the finish line and Burden. This tier list is becoming super top heavy, but I just can't help myself. Tension just cooks too hard. This one's going into the mythic tier. Taking a step back to episode 3 is Message to Mary Handback. Now I have no idea who Mary Handback is, but she gave us one of the most power endurance heavy Board Lords boulders that we've seen. Lots of moves at like a 60-degree angle, which is usually a pretty good time if you ask me. First of all, anything with a really tight drop knee in it cannot be less than solid tier. As long as you have a tight drop knee in there somewhere, your boulder is solid. I don't care if it's ass all around. If it has a drop knee, we can work with that. Tight drop knees are one of humanity's greatest inventions. The theme of this boulder also kind of seems to be like doing the same move twice in a row over and over, which I think is pretty cool. Like you first tag an intermediate and then bump again like 3 different times. The main issue with this boulder is that all the board lords seem to think it was easier to skip this first left hand crimp. And so this hold is probably unnecessary and forcing the theme a little bit. But overall, very solid boulder. I think I'm going to put this into the epic tier. Jumping forward to the first boulder of episode 8 is Popstar Researching Oblivion, which judging by the name, I feel like is definitely a Noah Wheeler special. This boulder is definitely not bad, but I do think it's the weakest one from this episode. This one is definitely very like board style movement, I think, and it's probably why Adam just kind of floated it on his first try. We do have a few flippies sprinkled in, with Zach flipping his hand to do this really high dead point and Adam to control the unwind at the top. I do think it's a little sad that this dam bar foothold like barely ever got used, and it seems to be easier to just use like the high handhold as a foot. But overall, good standard board boulder. We're putting this one into the solid tier. Next from the same episode, we have Illusory Path, yet another mysterious third boulder. Now the middle sequence of this thing is actually really unique. Like when's the last time you've seen a forced triple bump on a board boulder? That being said though, this one doesn't speak to me nearly as much as the other super hard ones, mostly because this foot outright seems like super low, and if you can't span from the slopey crimp to that foothold, this boulder seems like borderline impossible. This last move is also like absolutely ridiculous, especially at this angle, but it seems to be more of just like how hard can you crimp and latch this hold rather than anything like more interesting. That being said though, this boulder gave us one of the best moments on any board lords, courtesy of Korean Jesus Sung-Soo Lee. For those of you who don't know, Josh from Test Piece offered up a $100 bounty on this boulder, but he blundered and didn't specify the angle at which to climb it at, so Matt Foltz ended up cheesing his way to this bounty by doing it at 40 degrees. But now, there's an even bigger bounty for it at 50 degrees, so if you think you have the beans, go give it a try. This is your chance to win about as much money as you get from winning a World Cup. We're going to put this one into the solid tier. Next we have Punching Down, the first boulder from episode 5. Now I hate to say it, but the crux on this boulder is one of the most overused moves on the TB2. It comes up in Might of Manon, one of the most done V10s, Make It Forever, one of the most done V11s, and Make It Forever Extension, which is one of the most done V12s, which is bad news for me because this move is so incredibly difficult for me for some reason. Apparently at Tension, they call this jug the dumpster, and this makes a lot of sense because I've been dumped by this hold more times than I can count. Off Ben Kim, Make It Forever Extension is not V9. So mostly out of spite, and also because this is just one of the most overused moves on the TB2, I'm gonna have to put this one into the mid tier. Also, as a side note, Colin's campus beta for this crux is actually cracked out. Like, there's no chance that that's actually easier than just using the low feet. Moving on, we have the second boulder from the most recent episode, Get Your Mind Right. This one is yet another absolute banger. The beginning features like some of the most tension heavy board climbing that I've ever seen, with this really delicate footwalk when you're like completely horizontal. Kind of reminds me of like Paint It Black V15 in Colorado. And then it transitions to like almost the opposite style, being like very latchy, but still having a lot of tech and tension involved. And I really like how there's a lot of different like foot options for this top, especially using this Dan bar. And all of them are just amazing. The energy in the building when Medjdi sends this one is just off the charts. It's so much fun to watch. Also, can we take a moment to appreciate how like these climbers can do like 30 limit tries in a row and just still not get tired somehow? Especially Medjdi, like his capacity is just out of this world. We're putting Get Your Mind Right into the legendary tier. Now we're going to be taking another step back to the boulder Sail. Now this one does have some pretty decent movement, especially at the top, but the main issue with this is I think they overcooked this jump move like quite a bit. These are like some of the best crimp latchers in the world, and they could not do this move even in isolation. And honestly, I don't think they were that close either. The thing with these holds is that if this top crimp was like in cut even a little bit, I think they would all piss all over this move. But because it's so slopey at this angle, the amount of like friction and accuracy you need to like hold the swing, you just need to be like completely perfect. And I feel like this one move just makes this whole boulder like incredibly unbalanced. Like it's like one move V14 plus with like V11 or V12 around it. So while I do think this boulder is possible, I think they just completely overcooked this jump move. So I'm unfortunately going to have to put this into the ass tier. I do hope someone eventually does it though. Going all the way back to episode 2, we have another spray layout boulder called Vapor King. I don't think this one is as good as You've Seen the Butcher, which is the mirror layout one, but it's still pretty banging. For one, it gets a lot of points for this Gaston to undercling flippy in the middle, and it also has some of my favorite holds on the wall, like the pancake disc and the in-cut skirt crimp. It also does look like the boulder is pretty tension and leg heavy focused, which I always enjoy in a board boulder and kind of separates the tension board from other boards in the market. The biggest issue is that it just gets a little bit frame mogged by You've Seen the Butcher, unfortunately, but I still think Vapor King is pretty solidly into the epic tier. Now finally, we get to the big dog. How Soon Is Now at 60 degrees on the spray layout. In addition to being the first V15 on any board, this boulder just has so much going for it. It starts off with this sick, like juicy drop knee lock off into this sweet Gaston. We then have one of the most unique board moves that I've seen with this hand-foot swap, like from a toe hook to an undercling. By the way, they're at 60 degrees here. Like that is some ridiculous strength and tension. Then we have this sweet hand flippy into another recycle sequence, and then yet another lock off drop knee for the finish. On its own, this boulder is already one of the best. It's pretty intricate and techy for a board climb, but also manages to sneak in some very specific board style movement that you pretty much would never see outside. But also, of course, it gave us the best board lords moment so far. Exhausted after throwing himself on two of the hardest board climbs that's ever been created, Hamish MacArthur locks in like I've never seen anyone lock in before. Forget Game 6 Jordan or third round Romero. I want spray layout Hamish MacArthur. You know how old people are always like, I saw Maradona score the goal of the century. I saw the miracle on ice in 1980. I saw Ray Allen hit the shot to save LeBron's legacy. Well, I'm gonna tell my grandkids about the time Hamish MacArthur ran out of the tension climbing center after FAing the first V15 on a board.
Oh my god!
Absolute cinema. Of course, this one's going straight to the top of the mythic tier. Moving on, we have Nylon Strung. For one, again, it's like two boulders built into one, similar to like Get Your Mind Right, where you have this pretty tensiony beginning into this like low percentage jump move, into this like very shouldery and friction dependent second half. The coolest part of this boulder by far though is this forced campus move into this like drop knee finish. It's pretty rare to see forced campus moves that aren't just like how far can you pull on bad crimps. My other goat, Sung-Soo Lee, also did extremely well in this boulder, being so close to flashing it. So I'm also gonna have to put Nylon Strung into the legendary tier. Also, this episode has my vote for being the most aesthetic episode so far. Having Sung-Soo Lee and Zach Gala both frame mogging in the same episode is just what dreams are made of. Moving on to our penultimate boulder, we have Sugar for the Pill. Overall, a pretty solid boulder that Kyra AJ'd all over on.
She ate on that. Obviously, it's took a shit on it.
The movement is nothing too special, although this kind of rose move into this undercling flip is pretty cool. Normally, I would hate moves like this because my wrists are so bad that I can't supinate my wrists this much. But because this pinch is so fat and beefy, I actually think this would be okay. Kyra's beta for the second move, where you just flag really far out left, definitely removes a star from this boulder. But I think the intended bike, where you tag this intermediate, is actually pretty good. I think I would normally put this into the solid tier. But once again, in comes the board jester herself, Allison Vest, with her 360 cut loose hand flip craziness. And even though she doesn't send it in this video, her beta is enough to push this into the epic tier. And finally, our last boulder is With Teeth from episode 5. This one features potentially the hardest move out of any board lords. This insane drive-by to this wooden pinch, flying at it at 100 miles an hour, all at 55 degrees. This boulder pretty heavily revolves around this one move, but the intro honestly looks pretty hard and pretty cool in and of itself, and adds just enough for this one crazy move to be that much harder. It also includes a hand flippy, so of course it gets bonus points for that. Despite Quinn and Michael thinking that this boulder is around V13, it still has not been done at the original angle over a year and a half later, so it's safe to say it's probably more like V12 if we're being honest. I think this is one example of where like a board style, like how hard can you jump and latch, actually works really well, just because it's like kind of taken to its extreme, and the fact that you're doing a huge cross also adds a bit of complexity to it. I also wonder how much easier this move would be if you could go to the right hand instead of the left hand. Something tells me it would have already been done by now. A big highlight in this episode for me is also how Colin goes from like being completely dejected to doing like what's probably the single hardest move on any board lords. You can kind of see the moment in his brain where it goes from like it's so over to like we're so back.
I'm gonna throw in the towel.
A few moments later.
Come on, dude!
For all these reasons, we're going to be ending off strong, and we're putting With Teeth into the mythic tier. I really hope this one gets done. In fact, if anyone does this boulder, Hey Man Nice Shot, or Sail at their original angles, I will personally Venmo them 100,000 Vietnamese dong. Real quick, here's a list of people that I'd love to see in the future for board lords. Ben Kim, Aiden Roberts, Julian Bressler, an episode with Sean, and Sean, Jenny Board Labs, Eli Boards, Ertseps, Olive Climbing, James Dodson Cook, Brian Squire, and Matt Foltz. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I cannot wait for BL Season 2.